Colin Kaepernick has decided he will no longer stand during the national anthem until black people in America something. Now, some of you may be saying to yourself, Colin Kaepernick, didn't he used to be a football player? And yes, he did. Colin Kaepernick was once the promising quarterback of the National Football League's San Francisco 49ers. Everyone was very impressed with Cuban Stippledick because he could both run and pass, and whenever he scored a touchdown, he flexed his bicep for some reason. Unfortunately, while running and passing are very nice things for a quarterback to do while he's in college, they are not so good for when he becomes a professional quarterback who is paid money. You see, NFL football teams are businesses who like to make money instead of lose money because they're businesses, and that's the whole point. And when you're a business who pays a lot of money to your quarterback, you do not like to see him running so much, because if he starts running, he may meet a 500-pound man named something like Ndamukong, who will hit him so hard that the top of his body will be thrown for a 20-yard loss while his legs remain on the line of scrimmage and his knees become little more than a fond memory. Then all that money that the team paid to the quarterback is basically flushed down the Colin Kaepernick. So 49ers quarterback Benedict Cumberbatch couldn't run so much anymore, and it turned out he was actually not all that good at passing either, and he couldn't even flex his bicep so much after he scored a touchdown because he wasn't scoring any touchdowns, and just sitting around flexing your bicep looks kind of ridiculous. So Kerwin Stinklepoop lost his job as the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, and he was forced to sit on the bench, except during the national anthem, which was the only time he could stand up without getting tackled by someone named Ndamukong and thrown for a 20-yard loss. It was here on the bench that Costly Pooperface discovered that black people in America something. And so he could no longer stand up for his country's anthem until his country treated black people more fairly by, let's say, paying them millions of dollars to play quarterback badly. Now, some of you may be saying, hold on there just a second, Crapple Stinky Dink. How come you stood for the national anthem when you were still the quarterback and had something to lose, but now that you're on the bench and no one really cares what you think anyway, you're suddenly going to take a stand by not taking a stand and remaining on the bench, which, let's face it, is where you belong because you're a crappy quarterback, Quappy Hinklefink? Maybe the answer to that question lies in a report from Jay Glazer of Fox Sports, who says that the San Francisco 49ers had already been planning to cut Capper Collinscope from the team simply because he's not any good. So now Cumper Humperbump can make believe to us and to himself that he was cut because of taking a stance of not standing for his country because black people something. Frankly, if you ask me, that excuse is just a great big stinking pile of Colin Kaepernick. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. No, that's it. Those are all his real names. What is it about guys who have black fathers and white mothers, and their black father abandons them, and then they're raised by kindly white couple, then they hate America? You know, a guy could be president of the United States someday, you know? It's exactly the same story. Anyway, boy, oh boy, what we have got so much, you know, there was a demonstration in Santa Monica over the weekend where women exposed their breasts for some reason. And we, you know, it was tough, but we sent our cultural correspondent, Michael Knowles, out there. We will have a full report. But if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, you're going to lose the feed before then because you only get 15 minutes. And then you got to come over to the Daily Wire, or you can download us on iTunes or SoundCloud. And if you want to see the whole thing, including, you know, people taking their shirts off and the wild revels that we have here on The Andrew Klavan Show, then you have to subscribe. And then you can watch the entire show from beginning to end and also be part of the mailbag, which is, yes, you've got to be part of the mailbag because I know you have questions. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you stare into the dark. We answer them, and then you can go to sleep. Also, for more answers to your questions, please pre-order my memoir, The Great Good Thing, A Secular Jew Comes to Faith in Christ, and then send your receipt to aklavan@thedailywire.com, and I will sign a sticker for you to put in the book, and you will have a signed book. Even if you don't have a signed book, it's a good book. It's worth reading. All right, so last week, before the Klavanless weekend began, Hillary Clinton, Democrat candidate for president, hit on the amazing original idea of accusing her Republican opponent of racism. Who would, I mean, it was like a brain flash. It's like this light bulb. You could almost see the light bulb go, and she went, I know, no one's ever done this before. I will accuse Donald Trump of racism. So she went out and she made this speech. You will, here is a little piece of her speech that she hit Donald Trump with.
From the start, Donald Trump has built his campaign on prejudice and paranoia. He is taking hate groups mainstream and helping a radical fringe take over the Republican Party. His disregard for the values that make our country great is profoundly dangerous. In just this past week, under the guise of outreach to African Americans, Trump has stood up in front of largely white audiences and described black communities in such insulting and ignorant terms. Poverty, rejection, horrible education, no housing, no homes, no ownership, crime at levels nobody has seen. Right now, he said, you can walk down the street and get shot. Those are his words. But when I hear them, I think to myself, how sad. Donald Trump misses so much.
Yes, he misses the beauty of the black communities, where you can everything she just said about the black communities that's their sale. That is the Democrats' line, right? You've got to vote for us because your neighborhoods are garbage. You're getting shot. It's all persecution. You're oppressed. In 1996, when her husband was president, she was making that speech because remember then her husband was instituting all the anti-crime programs that brought crime down and that now she's running against. She is now running against these programs. So in 1996, she gets up and she makes this speech.
The fourth challenge is to take back our streets from crime, gangs, and drugs. And we have actually been making progress on this count as a nation because of what local law enforcement officials are doing, because of what citizens and neighborhood patrols are doing. We're making some progress. Much of it is related to the initiative called community policing, because we have finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the president had when he pushed the crime bill that was passed in 1994. He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction, but we can see it already makes a difference, because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere.
Gee, she misses so much about the black community, doesn't she? This was her sale. And when she talks about the fact, that Trump is just talking to white crowds, which is not his choice. I'm sure he'd be happy to have African Americans in his crowd. When she talks about that. So what she's saying to you is that he's making this sale to white people, not to black people. He's not trying to actually get black voters. But what are the Democrats doing? Who are the Democrats pitching to? They already got every black vote, every single black vote. All right, so now she puts out this ad. And to me, this is kind of amazing because, the polls are showing, I'm going by 538 now, the Nate Silver thing. And he says, Hillary's got a very comfortable lead, but it's sinking. And when he adds his own kind of wisdom to the polls and all this stuff, it's sinking. Her lead is falling a little faster than he thinks it should. And he writes a column saying it's too early for her to just sit back. What Hillary wants to do is she wants to tell the press to get stuffed. She's come this close, right? It's like, have chocolate. Don't ask questions. Just eat chocolate. Stuff your face with chocolate and shut up about the questions, She's that close to telling the press to get stuffed. She hardly shows up. She doesn't give any press conferences. She doesn't go anywhere. She doesn't do anything. She takes the weekend off. That's her best bet because every time people see her, they despise her. How can you not detest her? So every time she stays away, her poll numbers go up. That's the best thing to do. But Silver says, nope, it's too early to do that. There's something happening. And the race is getting closer. And personally, I mean, look at this ad. Look at the ad that she puts out accusing him of racism.
What do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. Look at my African American over here.
Trump management was charged with discriminating against African Americans and breaking federal law.
I have a great relationship with the blacks. I've always had a great relationship with the blacks.
What the hell do you have to lose?
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
So if you couldn't see that when he says, what the hell do they have to lose? The answer is everything. But really, it's a perfectly good question. And I think that this is why she has gone on the attack like this. And this is why she is bringing this up, because it's a really good question. Now, here is a guy you won't hear on the show all that often, Quanell X, who is the leader of the new Black Panthers, right? And he's talking to a talk show host, Matt Patrick. And this is a long cut, but listen to this exchange. It starts with Quanell X, and then it goes to Patrick, and then back to Quanell. And listen to what he says. He's saying essentially the same thing that Trump is saying.
Donald Trump last week went to Milwaukee because of the rioting behind a police shooting of a young African-American male by a black officer. And the city was being burned down in certain parts of the black community by protesters. So Donald Trump decided to go to Milwaukee and speak about the conditions of America and why he felt black people should vote for him. He even went on to lay out reasons why he felt we should. Let me say this to the brothers and sisters who listened and watched that speech. We may not like the vessel that said what he said, but I ask us to truly examine what he said, because it is a fact that for 54 years, we have been voting for the Democratic Party like no other race in America, and they have not given us the same loyalty and love that we have given them. We as black people have to re-examine the relationship where we're being pimped like prostitutes, and they're the big pimps pimping us politically, promising us everything, and we get nothing in return. We got to step back now as black people and say we got to look at all the parties and vote our best interests.
Look, I couldn't agree with you more, Quanell. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think what's going on, I know what's going on, is you take your CNNs, you take your NBC, CBS, ABC, and to a certain degree, every once in a while, the network that I won't mention because we're on it right now, they seem to have this opinion that Donald Trump is a horrific individual and he can't do anything right. And they're nervous, I think, that he may come in and start doing things the right way. And you know what? He does, I believe, is the man that is going to move things in the right direction. Look, things that come out of his mouth and the way he says things sometimes, I think, to myself, and I shake my head, goodness gracious. But you're right.
He spoke directly to black people.
Right.
And I want to say and encourage the brothers and sisters, Barack Obama, our president, served 2 terms. The first black president ever. But did our condition get better? Did financially, politically, academically, with education in our community, did things get better? Are our young people working more than what it was before they came into office?
They got worse.
The condition got worse.
Right.
And when Quanell X says that the blacks have given their loyalty to the Democrat Party like no other race, he left out the Jews. You know, one wishes that like Abraham X would get up and say kind of the same thing, you know, because these people aren't good for anybody. They aren't good for anybody. So that's a voice, you know, that's a voice. That's a leadership voice that it's going to be heard more and more. It has to be. It has to be. They can't destroy, you know, you can't always luck out and find a guy like Bill Cosby who is now exposed, and so his voice is neutralized. The things Cosby said were all true. Everything Cosby said about the black neighborhoods was true, but he neutralized himself by being such a bad guy behind the scenes. You're not going to be able to do that every time, not if everybody starts speaking up, and that's why the Democrats are afraid. That is why what Trump is doing, I mean, Trump is right on top of this. Let's just listen to a bit of his speech, the first cut of Trump, talking about Democrats and race.
The Democratic Party has failed and betrayed the African American community. Democratic crime policies, education policies, and economic policies have produced only more crime, more broken homes, and more poverty than we've ever had in those communities before. Nearly 4 in 10 African American children live in poverty. 58% of African American youth are not working. More than 2,700 people have been shot in Chicago since the beginning of this year alone. Violent crime has risen 17%, and in America's 50 largest cities, it's only going one way, folks, and that's up.
Okay, we've got topless women coming up, but you've got to come over to the Daily Wire. We're done with Facebook for today. We'll see you later.